And if possible, I'd like to actually do, I'd like to look at some of our tools on the website, like sortable stats. And if we have time, we'll pop into InfoSparks as well. With that, let's get going. All right, so here we are, guys. I don't mean to use cliches, but we are drowning in information, and yet we are starving for wisdom. I really do believe that. I'm not going to be some wise sage and leave, drop a lot of wisdom on you, but I do hope that you guys get some takeaways and that you walk away with news you can use, right? Content that's applicable to you and your business, that'll help you grow your business, help you better serve buyers and sellers, and so on. All right, from one of my heroes, W. Edwards Deming, without data, you're just another person with an opinion. Also, without data, you're just another realtor with an opinion. So let's keep that in mind. All right, I can't remember if I've shown this to a couple of you, but I like to start on a light note. Math matters, you guys. Remember in the 80s, A&W tried to compete with the quarter pounder by selling a third pounder for the same price. Product crashed and burned because most Americans thought a quarter pound was bigger than a third of a pound. So data matters, guys. Math matters. Also, we probably need to improve our education system if most people thought that. All right, I'm going to make a promise to you. Not a lot of promises in the world these days, but I promise you will feel overloaded with information. We will be sending out the slides, so please don't feel stressed about that, or that you have to take notes or do screenshots, because we will share them if you guys want to revisit them and spend some time with them. All right, let's kick things off. Let's get some charts going. That's what I'm here for, charts. I think that's what you're here for too. All right, so let's start broad, you guys. I know several of you have seen this, but I want to just kind of get us on the same page. This is change in seller activity, and we're looking at 2021 compared to 2020. Pretty plain to see, declines in listing activity under 350, combined with gains in seller activity in every price point over 350. Looks like in particular, $500,000 up to 3/4 saw that 25% spike in seller activity. Some of that was builders, right? I know a lot of new construction now is kind of high 4s, low 5s. Used to be high 2s, low 3s not that long ago, but the world is a changing place. Speaking of changing place, change in closed sales by price range. So we just saw seller activity up on this side of the chart, right? Kind of over 350. And sure enough, that's where the demand is, right? That's where the sales are happening. Biggest year-over-year gainer, and we've got a chart for this at the end when we talk luxury just briefly. Biggest gainer, guys, million plus, with a 50% surge in closings. And that was after a 25% increase the year prior. So luxury absolutely rocking and rolling. All right, let's shift into some longer term trends. When it comes to data analysis, you excel. April numbers, you guys, we just released this just the other day. I think it was Monday when we released this to the media. And so pretty fresh numbers here. So April new listings down about 6.5%, 6.75%, down from a 23% surge last April. But you guys can see we're kind of bumbling around the bottom as we have been. And well, for the most part, I think we still need more supply given the demand picture now. Let's see what happens if rates hit 6% or 6.5%. Let's see what happens with demand. Pending signed contracts down a little over 9% after a 35% spike last April, right? So guys, you're going to see this throughout. Let me just pause for a moment. You're going to see this throughout. And the comparisons aren't really apples to apples, right? They're kind of pineapple to pomegranate or whatever your preferred fruit analogy is. So two main things. First of all, we're comparing against a period where we had more inventory. So less inventory, harder to have sales gains, even though inventory has been down and sales have been up because there's almost no active listings left at the end of the month. So many of those properties listed are bought up, are absorbed off market. The second thing is, of course, we were in the midst of this COVID reshuffle, what I like to call the COVID reshuffle, where everyone wanted an extra bedroom, right? An extra 500 square feet, single family, right? Everyone wanted single family, that's for sure. So we saw this 35% gain. Well, of course we can't hang on to that, right? So we had to cough a little bit back up. We had to cough up about 9% of that, still ahead of 2020. Then again, April of 2020 was quite a fateful month. So was the second half of March. So no surprise that there was a pullback then, followed by the surge the next year. So really the crazy times, you guys, were really the second half of 2020 and first half of 21. So here we are, first half of 2020, and we're comparing to that first half of 2021. So just be careful with some of the apples to oranges comparisons. Closed sales, pretty similar story, right? Up 10%, down 8%, still holding the line above, actually, above 2018, 19, and 20, but below 21 levels just because of the reshuffle and all the madness. There was a run on housing. CDOM, cumulative days on market, median, so half above, half below. 8 days, just about a week, guys, just about a week. That's a far cry from the 85, 120, and even 140 days that we've seen. I almost caught myself saying not all that long ago, but 2008 was a while ago now, wasn't it? Flat at 8, flat at about 8 days, so a little over a week. And that's after down 53%, guys, from 17 to 8. So we chopped that in half, more than half. I think I'm encouraged by the fact that we're holding the line on that, right? That listings are still flying off the shelves. I've heard from some of you that some buyers are getting cold feet. I've heard from a couple folks that, on listings in desirable areas, right? Updated product, 4-bed, 2-bath, whatever it is. I've heard that, someone said for an identical property, a few months ago, we would have gotten 20, 30 offers. And they said this time we got 3. We got 3. So some evidence that things could be changing, although, I also think that buyers are trying to get ahead of further rate hikes by the Fed, right? The Fed is, I think they've left 3/4 point rate hikes off the table, but they're doing 0.5% hikes, right? 50 bip hikes. So I think there's some demand being displaced or incentivized earlier, pulled in earlier into the year, first half of the year, so buyers can kind of get ahead of some of those rate hikes. Now, careful there, right? That may help the first half of this year look a little better, but I think that's going to come at the cost of the second half of this year. So we'll be watching for that. So, July of last year, we're pretty close, you guys, 7 days, right? That was our week on market. 7 days, so not quite a year ago. And here we are at about 8. So tight market. Quick market, fast-paced market still. Half of all homes went under contract in under a week. That is a fact. Okay, price. Let's make dollars of the cents or cents of the dollars or whatever it is. So you guys will notice a few things here. First of all, the last couple percent changes, right? 10 1/4, 10% are a little bit higher than we've seen since about 2015. So over the last 5-6 years, price growth has accelerated, right? No surprise. We know why. The supply-demand imbalance has just been that dramatic. Okay, a couple other things you'll notice is that we've hit 370, we've crossed 350 for the first time. So guys, we're only in April, right? Prices usually peak, what, May, June, I think sometimes July, depending on weather. And so for 370 in April, we could easily touch 380 in May and or June. I don't know about 390, but we are creeping ever closer to 4. And you guys can see peak of the bubble in April, we were about 2 1/4, right? Can you believe that people used to buy 4-bed, 2-bath homes that were 2,000 square feet for 230,000? Those were the days. Okay, let's not reminisce too much. We got a lot to cover. Okay, so median sales price from May of last year through last month. There's our 10% gain. There's our 370, guys. So same numbers, just kind of framed a different way or visualized a different way. want to call out two things. One, I'm tired of looking at my mouse. Let's get my laser going. I just want sharks with lasers. Okay, here we go. So last year at roughly this time, prices were surging ahead at 16.5% per year, year over year, right? Quite a big jump, added 50 grand to our median sales price, 294 to 344, right? That was 16.5%. A couple of months ago, so March of this year, the rate of price growth was more like 8%. That's roughly half the rate of growth, right? Half the rate of increase. And that's a good thing. Much more sustainable, much more affordable for buyers. Buyers don't feel like the market's really gotten away from them, at least not as much as it has. And more in line with changes in income. Although not many people's income is up 8% per year, but even fewer are up 16% per year. And we're kind of getting back in line with historical norms, which are more like, believe it or not, 4, 5, 6%. So we're still, we kind of got back to 10, although it looked like we were settling in to 7.5 or so. I don't know if we're reaccelerating, and if that's going to be a trend, where we'll hit 12 or 14%. I guess I kind of don't think so, but we'll have to wait and see. All right, so year over year change in price. There's our 10%, guys. There's our 16.6. Called it out right there. Kind of look at where we were in 2009 and 2011. A little bit of a stabilization around the tax credit period, and just give us a quick sense of how things were sort of heading right into the peak of the bubble in 2005, 2006. And then now, well, recently, just like we said, guys, second half of 2020 and first half of 2021, those were the most bonkers times, the times that were the most bonkers, the craziest times. And you guys can see, right, above average growth, and then we kind of settled in, and then we've had above average price growth as well. Again, some evidence we were kind of settling back down into a healthy, sustainable rate of price growth. But we've kind of been up and down. Percent of original list price received at the time of sale. Sellers are getting 103.8% of their list price, right? 103.8. So they're getting 100% of their asking price plus 3.8%. Some of you might be surprised that we're even higher than last April, that we've actually seen an increase here. Remember, inventory is lower and there are plenty of buyers trying to get ahead of rates. I don't know if that'll mean that, May sales are higher. April sales were lower, as we saw, about 8 or 9%. So again, we'll have to see what happens. Anyone who tells you they know what's going to happen is a liar. Active listings, inventory, homes for sale, they're all synonymous. At one point, we had about 35,000 homes for sale in the metro. We've only seen population growth since then. And last month, we had 5,800. 5,800, down from 35,000. I like the phrase, I'll climb way out on the skinny branches and say that is a significant decline, right? Pretty significant there. Again, a little bit of evidence we're stabilizing a little bit, right? I hope it's not a head fake. This was a head fake here, right? This was a little bit of a head fake here where it looked like we were kind of on the way up, but we weren't. Although this doesn't look like we're on the way up, it looks like the declines are declining. The rate of decline is moderating, right? So after a 40% decline in inventory, we're only about 8.5. All right, month supply of inventory. One of my favorite indicators. I think most of you know this. I really like month supply, percent of original list price, and days on market. I also like new listings and pendings and closings and price. I like them all. I love all of our metrics, right? You won't be surprised to hear that. But those three in particular, I think, month supply, days on market, and percent of original list price received. I really think those three could give us the earliest glimpse or the earliest sense of any market shift. Of any market shift. We've been down, and now we're kind of flat-ish. And so before you can go up, you have to stop declining. It appears as though we have or we are about to stop declining. Now, guys, does that mean that 1.1 months will surge up to 8, 10 months of supply? You have no idea how long it'll take us to get there, right? We've underbuilt housing for 15 years, right? We've been underbuilding. We have such a deficit in available units that it's just going to take us so long to get back to a balanced market, even with rates where they are. We've done this one a bunch of times, guys. I'm going to just kind of blow through this one. Again, you'll have the slides if you want to kind of study it further and read a little bit more. We've been in a seller's market for I think 10 years. I think we've been in a seller's market for 10 years. Kind of crazy to say that. Maybe 8 years, 2012, 2013. Okay, we'll look at that. So guys, seller's market, there's one home for sale, but there's 5 people competing over it. Seller gets to pick and choose their offer. Buyer's market, there's 3 sellers, and these guys have to compete with one another in order to lure in one of these 2 buyers, right? So someone's going to be left without a chair to sit in when the music stops. All we want is a relatively well-balanced market where supply and demand are pretty well matched up. All right, even longer term trends. Yeah, so I'm going to need you to bring more data. That would be great. Thanks, Peter. All right, housing market activity, new listings in blue, closed sales in red. All the way back to 1967. I love the historical data, guys. It really puts it in context. Jackson and I have been having some conversations, do we really need to go back to 2003? And I really like capturing the sort of run up into the bubble, then to the decline, and then the recovery and really absurdly strong market that we've seen since. There's 2 Mount Everests that we're looking at on screen, 2 Mount Everests that really stand out to me. You guessed it, 1 and 2, right? And these are buildups in new listings that led to buildup in inventory. But remember, the demand wasn't there, right, to absorb this. In the housing bubble, right, in the Great Recession, 07, 08, look at this increase. And guys, the increase started, well, I don't know about well before. I know we were inflating our bubble in 03 for sure. But we saw this buildup. Buyers came along for part of the ride, and then they didn't when they lost their job or when when the world kind of changed after that. We are as tight as we've been. The ratio between supply and demand, right? New listings and closed sales. This ratio is the tightest it's been since at least 1967, right? At least, likely before. Now, bubbles. Almost every bubble is supply driven, right? It's a supply driven bubble. Do you guys remember the Dutch tulip bubble? It's a little bit in the rearview mirror. The year was 1637 in Holland, and they call it tulip mania. Dutch tulip bulbs, right? So I can't remember, guys, is this not francs, whatever, not pounds, whatever the currency was. It went from 25 to 200, right? So 25 to 250 would be a 10-fold run up. That would be like home prices going from 300,000 to 3 million, right? We're not quite there. Now, that's not the only thing, of course, that defines a bubble. People spent 10 times the income of the average worker on one tulip bulb, 10 times. Typical worker, say making 50K a year, spend $500,000 on one tulip bulb. Can you even imagine that? I promise I'm not lying. Look it up. All right, the great mean reversion, another one of my favorites. Guys, nothing goes straight up or straight down forever. What we've done here, we've found that the average rate of price growth over the last 60 years has been about 5.5%. After inflation, just about 2%, just under 2%. So what I've done is I've put an upper and lower bound on this, right? Red and I guess gray or khaki. Red and khaki. Nice. What is this? The Target Skyway. Target stock down 25% lately. It's kind of interesting to see. You're talking to a guy who still owns Netflix. Okay, anyway. So guys, look at our bubble, right? Look at our 04-05 bubble. Pretty clear to see we were way above our trend, right? The channel is sort of that average growth rate. So if we had that 5.6% steady eddy, consistent growth year after year after year, we'd be dead in the middle of this channel, right? We'd be dead in the middle of that channel. But like we said, markets don't work like that. They're a little bit more volatile than that. Nothing goes in that kind of direction that's with that stability for that long. So if you actually zoom in here, we were below trend, right? And then kind of above, and then kind of back on trend, and then way above in our bubble, and then under, right? I like to call this the party, and then this was our hangover. And now, guys, yes, we've been recovering since 2012 or 13. You can see the rate, the slope has increased, right? We can see the rate of growth has increased. So there's kind of our slope there, and there's kind of our slope there. So it is a different rate of growth. However, we're just kissing the bottom bound of that channel, right? Hard to say we're in a bubble unless we're at least back in that channel. I would think probably above, right? This was bubbly. We were way above that channel, right? So that's why I call it the mean reversion. Over a long enough period of time, everything kind of reverts to the mean. You can be above it for a while, below it for a while, but that's what makes, right, kind of an average an average. It has that gravity. It wants to kind of pull you toward it. Let's shift gears abruptly. Percentage of sales with a price reduction. Let's talk price reductions, guys. March. You guys remember when over half of our deals, half the listings required a price reduction? A couple months ago, it was 18%, not even 1 in 5, right? Not even 1 in 5. But that was a little bit of an increase for March. Not much, 0.4, right? Not much, and still about as low as it's been in 20 years. But we did register a little uptick there. Let's fast forward to April last month. What do we see? Did we confirm that uptick? No, we did not. We actually saw a decrease in the prevalence of price reductions. I want to give a quick shout out. Let's see. Let me go back to my participant list. I want to give a shout out to Christine Hazel. She and I have been talking a little bit back and forth about price reductions and some of the other kind of changes we're seeing. So I want to give a shout out to Christine for reaching out, for talking about this stuff, for caring about this stuff, and for remaining ever curious. So shout out to you, my friend. Price reductions. Oh, one more thought. So Christine has said that she runs some weekly numbers, and you guys will notice these are monthly figures. So even though we showed a decline for the month of April, that's not to say that we didn't see an increase the last week of April, right? And so Christine and I have kind of been talking about that. And maybe there's a way to look at this a little bit more weekly. So we're thinking about that. Market share. Sharing? I have 3 and she has none. I see no problem. All right, we'll do this briefly, you guys. Pretty high level stuff. What percentage of our market is new construction? It's a little over 9%, down from 10%. Safe to say, labor shortages, supply chain constraints, and some of you have told me, you can't get appliances, garage doors, window. It's just still hard to get materials for builders to secure the products that they need to deliver homes to market. One caveat here, guys, is every new construction home listed on the MLS? It's not. The majority of them are, and so we've got a representative sample, but we do not have a complete sample. And so what does that mean? When we're showing 15%, the truth is probably more like 17, right? Because we're missing some. When we're saying 9 1/3, the truth is probably more like 10 1/2. So I'd say add a percentage or two, to these figures. But as I say, the trend is your friend, guys. Of course, there was a lot of new construction in 2006. A lot of it was condos. Of course, it came down, after the Great Recession. And of course, as we've had a real supply shortage, we see builders doing their best to fill that gap, to fill that hole. I sometimes like to cite the 5 L's. It's been a little while since I've talked about them. What's driving new construction? 5 L's: lots, labor, lending, lumber, and laws. One more time: lots, labor, lending, lumber, and laws. I think we can switch lumber with just materials, but that doesn't start with an L. I'll think about that. Let me think on that, guys. All right, so that's new construction. Townhouse-Condo, condo bubble, 28%, 2006, right? So townhouse-condo market share was about at its highest, in this 20-year period, in 2006, probably even before. Where are we now? About 25% townhouse-condo share, which puts us at about 75% single family. you guys can see that's been pretty flat, pretty even, a little bit of an increase here. Why do we see this dip here in 2020? People wanted single family, that's why, right? So townhouse condo market share dipped just a little bit, not much, just a little bit. Guys, I gotta say something. If we want to start to address our supply squeeze, density is going to have to not be a bad word, right? Building up and not out is going to have to be part of the solution. So NIMBYs, look out. Distressed sales market share. What percentage of our sales were foreclosures or shorts? About 50% in 09, 10, and 11, right? Just about half. Last year, 0.6%, right? Just about 0.5%. As low as this has been in just about 20 years, right? Just about as low as we've been. I sometimes joke, look, this takes the elevator up and the stairs down, right? Kind of elevator up and stairs down. What do stocks do? Stairs up, elevator down, right? I don't know why I find that funny, but I do. All right, more beds, please. What percentage of our sales had 4+ bedrooms? Look at the jump in 2020, right? People wanted bigger homes with more beds. More beds tend to be in bigger homes. Bigger homes tend to have more beds. So we've come down to 41%, had to cough some of that up. You guys can see this has been obviously on a growth trend. Mr. Big Stuff, percentage of sales that were 2,500 square feet or bigger. You'll notice our little COVID spike in 2020, don't you? I sure do. Down to 25.5, still up from 19 levels, in the second highest that we've seen. And you guys can see home sizes have been growing, right? I have to admit, I'm a recovering Wisconsinite. Someone, I wish that was my own thinking. Someone introduced themselves to me as hi, I'm John. I'm a recovering attorney. And I thought that was so funny. So I'm a recovering Wisconsinite. Guys, percentage of sales occurring in Wisconsin, about 3.5%. Hasn't really changed all that much. Remember, the Twin Cities Metro includes St. Croix and Pierce counties in Wisconsin. So they're in the Metro, even though they're not in the state. So kind of interesting. Cash probably still rules everything around you. So let's get the money. You guys can see, right? Cash sales were only about 4 or 5% of our market. And then, right, investors, flippers sort of descended on the market. And we saw about 23% of our deals done in cash by 2011. It's come down. And here we are, we've been about 10 to 13, 10 to 14% for several years. Little dip in 2020. Why? First time buyers coming in. They just haven't had enough time in their careers to save up money to buy a home in cash, right? The median priced home at that time was what, 330, 340. Hard for someone in their late 20s, early 30s to come up with 350 grand cash. Luxury, deluxe. If this doesn't scream luxury to you guys, I don't know what does, right? Closed sales over $1 million. There's our 50% gain. We looked at it. We already saw it, right? You guys got a sneak peek of this. That 50% was after a 25% the year prior. Guys, 1,500 versus 500, this market has tripled. But I think the more impressive stat is, let's call this 750 and call this 1,500. This market has doubled in 2 years. Right? Well, 3, depending, 1% change, 2% change, right? This market has doubled in a couple years. Kind of insane, opportunity there, a lot of opportunity there, you guys, more than apparently there's ever been. April month supply, 4 different ranges. Maybe I'll go down here, 300K and under, 300 to 500, 500 up to $1 million, and then $1 million plus. As you climb the price ladder, absorption rates get higher. Always been the case. 0.7 of a month of supply for product under 300K. Remember that 0.65, 0.66 will round up to 0.7. 0.74 will also round down to 0.7. But guys, we've got about 3 weeks of supply. of homes under 300K. We're looking for 5 months. We have 3 weeks, a little bit absurd. 1.1 for 300 to 500, 1.8 for 500 up to $1 million. And, yes, the highest absorption rate for $1 million plus at 3.3, but my goodness, look at the change, you guys. Look at the change. Unreal, down 60%, then down another 25%. In 2 years, this market has gone from a pretty strong buyer's market, right? Over 11 months of supply, right? 7 months of supply is a buyer's market, 7, 8 is a buyer's market. So this had over 11, and it has absolutely plummeted down to 3.3, guys. This is a seller's market. Million plus is a seller's market. In this environment, I could go into a $1.1 million listing, offer $950 or $975, and I might be fortunate enough to get it. In this environment, you're seeing 1.1 million going for 1.15, right, or 1.2. Not always the case, obviously, but this market has firmed up so much, and if I had the wherewithal to do it, I would love to. And I have a little sport court in the basement. Not much of a basketball guy, maybe bocce. I like that, a bocce ball court, something. All right, diving deeper into affordability, because I'm the data guy, right? That's data. I'm not a Star Trek guy, but I thought that was kind of funny. And then our scuba dogs to help us dive deeper. I always like to follow up million plus with an affordability conversation. Bear with me on that. All right, guys, our HAI, Housing Affordability Index. Don't overthink it. Higher numbers, higher affordability. Lower numbers, lower affordability. So what does 95 mean? Well, let's look at 133. What does 133 mean? 133 means that the median income is 133% of or 33% greater than the minimum income needed to qualify for the median priced home under prevailing interest rates, right? It sounds complicated. It's a lot of words. Higher, more affordable, lower, less affordable. Affordability just came down 28.5% from last April, right? We have mortgage rates to thank for that, right? Something that is a little bit concerning is we're under 100 for the first time since at least 04, likely since maybe 01, 02, maybe since 2000, could be since the late 90s. We are below 100, meaning what? The median household income was 95% of what is necessary to qualify for the median priced home under prevailing rates. You'll notice 95 is under 100 for the first time. Even in our bubble, you guys, look at 06. We were still around 120. Right now we're at 95. So this really kind of highlights just how much affordability has been damaged by rates roughly doubling, right? Not quite doubling, 3 to 5.5 or 5.25 in what? 4 or 5 months, 6 months? No, maybe 6 months or so. A little bit concerning, when it comes to affordability. Guys, California, New York, Seattle, a lot of these places have 40, 50, 60, right? Where the median income is about half of the necessary income needed to qualify. We're pretty close to 100%. So I'm concerned. I don't think this means the sky is falling, but I am a little bit concerned about it. So this is going to be worth watching. Okay. I love the historical stuff, guys. I just think it's so neat. Monthly principal and interest payments, so excluding taxes and insurance, just the PI, not the TI. So 1978 through 81. Look at your payment in 1978, $410. By 1981, $830. House payments more than doubled in 3 years, right? In the late 70s, early 80s. House payments more than doubled in 3 years. By the way, $830 a month in 1981 would be $2,600 today. If you don't believe me, you should. I wish you did. I'm the data guy. So if in 81 I purchase an item for $830, then in 2022 the same item would be about $2,600, about $2,600 a month. But that's not where payments are, right? Payments last year were at $1,765 a month. That was the typical payment on the median priced home. And look where we were at the peak of the bubble, about 16 and a quarter. Guys, last year, we just surpassed the median payment from 06. So prices are here, but payments kind of just got above where they were. And we've had rates to thank for that. Now, this year to date, we're getting toward the halfway through the year mark. And so we're at about 2,000 and we have interest rates to thank for that. So we're at about 2,000 a month here. So here we go. So low rates and rising incomes have partly offset price gains. So this one's actually the percentage of pre-tax median income spent on the mortgage of that median priced home. Guys, we're still only about 22% compared to 25% of our pre-tax income in 06. So while the affordability index does concern me a little bit, when we look at it this way, perhaps it's not as concerning. It's not to say we don't have affordability challenges, but there's a lot of different lenses we can use to kind of look at the market and look at affordability. Price to income ratio. Median income last year, 105 grand. 2021 home price, about 340K. God, 339.9. Couldn't we just have made it round at 340? So guys, last year, we spent a little over 3 times our incomes, right? And so far this year, a little bit higher. Peak of the bubble, we spent 2.9 times our income, right? So just under 3 versus just over 3. Yes, it's as high as it's ever been, but it's not that much higher compared to where it was, 15, 17 years ago. This is something that we're watching. Yeah, this one's a little geeky, guys. I just co-plotted them. I plotted them on the same chart. So you've got median payments in blue, and you've got median prices in red. So look at the payment versus price picture here, right? Look at the payment versus the price, and look at payment versus price here, right? Pretty different story. Pretty different story. I just kind of said that, right? We've seen this one, guys. Median sales price, dark blue, all-time highs. Until several months ago or half a year ago, rates were at pretty much all-time lows, which means these low rates have offset these high prices to keep payments flatter than I think some people believe, right? I think flatter than we think. Now, data's a couple years old. I apologize for that. This is actually from the Harvard JCHS, the Joint Center for Housing Studies, and I haven't seen anything updated, but it really does provide a good picture. All right, how about our beautiful gem of a core city, Minneapolis? Let's just spend a second on this, guys. Urban market share last month, right? Down a hair from what, February or March, but still at just about its highest level since June of 2015. This is not consistent with people fleeing the city. This is not consistent. This does not corroborate the narrative around urban exodus, right? It does not. Look at this, condo bubble, anybody? 09, right? A lot of those sales were taking place in either Minneapolis or St. Paul. 2020. Downtown Minneapolis population grew 3.5% in 2020, grew downtown. Downtown Minneapolis population grows again. What is it? 5.6% in 2021. So what, 3.5 in 2020, another 5.5% in 21. Guys, the 11 tower, right? The new luxury tower. It has been, from my understanding, and I guess that's somewhat limited, every unit in that is over $1 million, or almost every unit is over $1 million. And my understanding is that they've had almost no cancellations, right? Almost none. And that almost nobody has sort of backed out of that. And so there she is. There she is. May he rest in peace, Jim Stanton's legacy project. I think some of those people lost their view a little bit, maybe a little bit. But it used to be Carlisle taking the cake on tallest residential tower, and now it is 11. Not to be outdone. Kind of changes the skyline a little bit. Kind of interesting. Anywho, all right, I like geeking out on Google Maps, but we are here to talk about the market. So guys, the cities are doing okay, right? They're doing okay. People are not fleeing cities. All right, at any rate, let's shift gears a little bit. Interest rates nationally, as of last week, the Federal Reserve, had them at 5.3. That's national, right? California is different than Florida is different than Minnesota. Guys, look at our giant U shape. The trend, this should be the trend, right? This should be the trend. This is not the trend, right? That's not the trend. This is the trend. I personally, and these are my personal beliefs, I personally believe that the Fed should have been raising rates years ago, right? The economy has been strong. It's been in recovery. I think we could have withstanded higher rates. It's not to say people didn't love getting 2.7, 2.8, 3.1, and 2 on a 30-year, but rates this low for this long, I think have caused some of the issues that we're dealing with, some of the challenges that we find ourselves in today. When in doubt, zoom out. Might need my magnifying glass for this one. Rate sheet from 1982. Conventional loans. Rates start at 18%. With 1 point, you can buy down to 16 3/4 with 5.5 points. Wow. Wow. Sort of astonishing. Sort of astonishing. By the way, Mr. Jim Duffy, there's his pager number if you want to reach out. I bet he doesn't have that pager anymore. Guys, our 30-year fixed rate. I know a couple of you will remember early 80s, 17, 18% interest. So to hear people really up in arms about, 5, 5.25, whatever, I think it's useful to take a longer term perspective. Who knows the long-term average? Our 50-year average for the 30-year fixed rate mortgage, it's about 8%, right? It's just about 8%. We're still noticeably below that, right? Yes, we were more below that not that many months ago. So, you're getting a better than average rate still, and I believe that'll be the case for some time. I don't think we'll cross 8 this year, probably not the first half of next, if next at all. I think 8 would present challenges. All right, mortgage rate projections at any rate. So here, 2022 for the first quarter, Fannie Freddie, the mortgage bankers, and NAR all saying about 3.2. Wow, were they way off, right? 3.2. Guys, this is why, if you're wondering, we don't do many forecasts or projections, because the smartest folks weren't even close, and because I hate being wrong. It happened to me once in the late 90s, and it wasn't fun. All right, homeowner equity growth. What's been happening with equity? I know I've shown this one a couple times. I still think it's a great one. So your typical homeowner, guys, late last year gained $33,000 in housing wealth, right? In unrealized housing wealth, unrealized equity gains. You might think that's a lot, and I'll climb way out on the skinny branches and say $33,000 is a good chunk of change to anyone I know, and I would even say just about anyone on our webinar today. But that's 10% growth on a $330,000 median home price, right? That's 10% on 330. There's your 33. Not that hard to get to. It seems like a lot, 33,000. There's no way. No, that was 10% price growth on a median of about 330. So there you have it. So here's the challenge, you guys. That was good news. Let's kind of come back to earth a little bit, a little sobering. The challenge is that those gains aren't being shared equitably across our community. We've got the worst racial housing gap in the nation. It's embarrassing. It just doesn't reflect our values, and we must do better. So here's homeownership rate by race, 2019 compared to 2020. We've got our white, Asian, Hispanic, Latinx, American Indian, and Alaska Native, and our Black African American communities all broken out. White home ownership rate, about 76.5%. Black home ownership rate, about 27%, right? So, you know what, a couple years ago, 25 versus 75, 3 times the home ownership rate, 3 times as likely to own your home. I'll say I am slightly heartened by the fact that some of the groups with the lowest rates of ownership are the ones that experience the largest gains. I am somewhat encouraged by that, but boy, oh boy, do we have work to do here. Guys, are we due for a 2008 all over again? The likelihood of us having a foreclosure crisis is just about 0%. Cash out refis as a percent of all mortgages, 90% were cash out refis in 06 versus 38% in 2020. Big difference. How about our higher risk borrowers? Sub 620 credit scores. We originated just under $400 billion in new mortgage loans for folks with credit scores under 620 in 06. A couple years ago, not even 75 billion. Big difference, right? Big difference there. Guys, I love this one. I've been getting good feedback on this one. I used to have it and then I didn't because it wasn't really a concern. And now recession talk has kind of come back with the Fed and the inverted yield curve and everything else, and the NASDAQ being down, what, 30% from its highs. Anywho, so is it written in stone that home prices must decline during a recession? I would bet over 50% of people out there think yes, that home prices always fall during recessions. Those people would be wrong, right? They'd be absolutely wrong. Home prices rose during 5 of the last 6 recessions. 5 of the last 6 home prices came out higher than when they went into the recession. The only exception is, of course, the Great Recession, the 08-09 recession, which was housing caused, mortgage finance caused, housing bubble caused. So, of course, home prices had to adjust a little bit back then. But check it out, guys. Take a peek for yourself. These are facts, whether you like them or not. That's the glorious part about facts, right? Facts and science are real, whether we believe them or not, right? They're real. So I found this one really compelling. Think of you're talking with a buyer, you guys. Oh, well, 5.2 seems high. Well, anything under 8% is actually above average. Oh, well, we got a recession coming, might be in some trouble. Home prices will fall. Actually, home prices rose for 5 of the last 6 recessions. Guys, this is gold, right, to use with your clients. This is practical. This is news you can use. So do be thinking about that. Yeah, impact of rising rates. You guys have seen this. I don't know that we'll cover this, but just know, from 4.75 to 5.75, if you're borrowing 360, which is much more than, well, assuming 10% down, that's more than you need to borrow for our median priced home, although not that much. You're talking about what, 1,900 to 2,100. You're talking about $200 a month. It's about $2.5 grand a year. It's not nothing. But remember, that's only from 4.75 to 5.75. If you look at 3% to 5.75, different story, right? A little bit of a different story. How about rate hikes? Do home prices always fall during rate hikes? Well, here's the last 4 periods where we experienced pretty dramatic increases in mortgage rates. And here's what home prices did during each of those periods, right? Home prices grew during each of these rising mortgage rate environments, right? During each of these significant rate hikes, including from 12.5 to 14.5. Yeah. Love this one. Guys, prices almost never fall with under 6 months of supply. Look. Prices are falling. Prices are gaining. Month supply. Sellers markets under 6 months. Buyers markets over 6 months. Take a look. Where's the concentration? We see most months were undersupplied markets with rising prices. That's the norm, right? How about undersupplied markets with falling prices? We have not seen any Case-Shiller number in since 1999 where the market had under 6 months of supply and prices were softening. Not once since 1999. Now, that's national. Some metro areas and cities and neighborhoods, obviously have varied. It's not to say this will continue forever, but this is pretty good evidence to me that until we get, toward 4 or 5 months, which can happen. I think it'll take some time, but it could happen. Eventually, I guarantee you we'll get there, just not sure exactly when. Until we start to get, month supply levels toward that point, I think we're relatively unlikely to see price declines, right? It's not to say it's impossible, but relatively unlikely. All right, guys, I'm running a little bit late here. I see we're at about 2:55, so I'm going to blow through a little bit of this. Guys, we're in the midst of a triple threat: low inventory, rising prices, and now rising rates. And this has kind of been the latest kind of kicker. And so it really is kind of a triple punch. Other ruminations, right? If I don't buy now, I may never be able to. There's a little bit of that urgency. We talked about this, right? So that, yeah, this may mess with the numbers. We talked about that. Some buyers on a budget could be deterred. Kind of talked about that. This one's interesting. Sellers with sub 4% rates, which is about half of Americans, believe it or not, feel locked in or married to their interest rate. Well, you guys might be encouraged by the fact that most marriages end in divorce in this country. So people who think they're married to their rates may be more likely than we think to divorce from them. Only kind of kidding, sort of, but not really. So this may push seller or listing activity lower, guys. I'm married to my interest rate. I love my 3.5% interest rate. So listings are already low. Could that push them even lower? Well, if listings are low and falling and demand is high and falling a little bit, the worry is if listings go up and sales go down. That's the worry. But here it seems like we're having listings might come down a little and sales might come down a little. So I think we'll keep that ratio, that supply demand ratio should still be pretty tight. So, some people are worried, oh, there's going to be a flood of homes on the market. Inventory is going to surge. We're going to have 10 months of supply in no time. I don't know how eager some of these folks will be to relinquish their rate. Then again, some buyers will need to lower their price point to keep their payments under $2,000 a month. So instead of shopping around, $375, they may be looking at $325. Oh, this is an interesting idea. The extra several hundred a month in interest could be offset by renting out the old place. There's the key. If you have one, right? That's the key. So yeah, not as many sellers will come on the market. They're not motivated to pay 5.5 compared to 3.5. Aspiring buyers may feel priced out given these changes. So maybe, just maybe, even less supply could be met with less demand. And that could keep the market kind of balanced, right? Keep prices afloat. I mentioned this, right? We have this deficit in supply that is just going to take a long time to claw our way out of. All right, last 2 slides, guys. I've been hearing this a little bit. Are there really that many agents out there? And is there enough opportunity for me to be successful in this industry? Total active RMLS subscribers, North Star subscribers. Just under 20,000 last year. How about during the bubble? 05, 06, about 21,000, guys. We're not even back to bubble level numbers of agents, right? We're not back. We're close. We're as close as we've ever been, but we are not back. There are fewer agents than there were in 05, 06. How many dollars are sloshing around out there? 26 billion. How many dollars were sloshing around back when we had even more agents than we do? Oh, a little under 17 billion. So let me get this straight. There's fewer agents now than there were then, and yet there's what, 50% more dollars out there for me to capture and count as part of my GCI? That sounds like pretty good news to me. Could it be changing? Could be, yeah. I think it'll take a while. It'll take some time to really totally change. Guys, there's not as many of you, and yet there's so much more opportunity. I think somehow that gets lost. I'll reduce this, as I do most things, to a giant game of Hungry Hungry Hippos. This, of course, is the Minnesota version of Hungry Hungry Hippos on the ice. I think I'll wrap up with that, or excuse me, with our cute little baby hippo. And I will stop with that. How do we do? Right at 3 o'clock, not bad. All right. Any thoughts, questions? Let me check chat real quick, you guys. Christine is wonderful. Yes, she is. Great info. Love the multiple items. Do you have that chart in units? I do not, but we could pretty easily. We can look at unit sales pretty easily. And unit sales hit what, 65, 66,000 last year, which was an all-time high. So units, even units, all-time high. Number of agents not quite back to all-time highs. So just something to think about there. And how are we looking, Jackson? I don't see any questions.
I just see compliments, and they are well deserved. Thank you so much, David, for your presentation, and thank you all for taking part in, attending these. Your attendance is the reason why we're able to dive into these numbers all the time. So thank you so much. I am going to put the link for our next monthly housing market update in the chat. Go ahead and click on that and register, so that way you don't miss out on our next webinar with David. And you will be getting a follow-up email with a recording from today's webinar, as well as slides. So be on the lookout for those. And in the meantime, have fun, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, Jackson. Thanks, everybody.